All right. Well, thank you all for joining for this decolonized storytelling training as part of the Lemonade project in partnership with our education ombudsman who's here and the State Board of Education. So I just want for all of us who may not know each other and to become fast friends. So I'm going to start, I'm going to end with Serena because she's going to elaborate. But I'll start with LaJoy. Do you want to just say your name, what ward you live in, what school your kid goes to, and something fun about yourself?
Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm LaJoy. I live in Ward 8. My daughter, Abria, she goes to Rocket Ship Legacy Prep. She's in the 4th grade. She is a student that has an IEP. So hopefully we get to talk about special education today and that struggle with distance learning. It's been a struggle. And something fun about myself. The doorbell just rang. Who is at the door? I listened to Pandora today though. Like I took a moment, made lunch, and listened to like all my old 90s music. I was in heaven. I was like, come on, self-care. Come on.
The 90s music again, right? Monica versus Brandy. We already know what side you're
Monica,
on.
I'm sorry. Yes, Yolanda, don't know. Don't do that. No, don't do that. Don't do that.
Okay. Next, well, let's go to Yolanda Corbett.
Okay. Well, I have 3 children of my own. So I have my, wait. Kim, can you run me back? I just went into a space. I'm not even, I blinked out really quickly. My brain.
Yeah, no, it's a lot going on. It's a lot going on. We know that you're Yolanda Corbett, what school your kids go to. Okay. What ward you live in?
Okay. So I represent Ward 7 because that's always going to be my home. I'm currently displaced from there, and I'm a guest in Ward 5. That's my info. And then I have 3 children. One that is a 9th grader at Washington Leadership Academy. And then I have my 7th grader who is at Inspire Teaching. And then I have my 1st grader who is at Rocket Ship Legacy Prep.
Great, thanks. And Yolanda is a PAC Fellow. It's part of the Bright Beam Fellowship. So there are a few others on, and I will just get to everybody in order of what shows up on my screen. So next is Lindsay Jones-Renaud.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay. I am in Ward 7. I have 2 kids. We're watching a movie right now. Say hi.
Hi.
Amelia and Caroline, pre-K 4 and 2nd grade at Elsie Whitlow Stokes East End, at the new campus in Ward 7. And something fun about me. I don't know what's fun about me right now. I'm tired. Yeah, I don't know what to say.
That's okay.
Can't think of anything.
Lindsay's a that I for sure.
Lindsay, you are beautiful.
Thank you. I'm tired at the moment, but anyways, nice to meet you all. Excited to be here.
Great, thank you. So Fari Thumpe.
Jumbo, everyone. I am Fari Gamina Tumpe. I am a PAT Fellow with Bright Beam. I also do social and justice work with Spatial in Action. I'm a certified peer specialist with Department of Behavioral Health, and do some other disability rights work with University Legal Services. That brought me to Bright Beam, and I'm from Ward 6. But my custodial grandson, Aiden, attends Marie Reed Elementary School, Uptown, DC. And something fun about me is that I can do all the dances that the kids can do. And when we all get together and I do those dances, they crack up laughing.
Yes, and Fari is a lot of fun. We've made chants together, like she's just right off the top of her head. So thank you. So Yolanda, do you want to add something fun about yourself? I saw that in the chat.
Oh, but I just put in, I love musicals, you know, I'm a nerd that way. Like Hamilton has been on repeat. I promote it every time, and Lion King, just in case you wanted to get into Broadway. I'll be your guy.
Great, thank you. So next is Michelle Parrish. Mickey.
Hello. Hopefully, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I'm having to be on outside duty at this moment. I am Michelle Parrish. I am also one of the Pat Fellows. I am currently I reside in Ward 5. I'm a mom of 2. Outside right now on what I guess would be otherwise recess duty with the kids. I do have one student with an IEP. I've been engaging and becoming more invested in the disability advocacy community, specifically with special education for DC students through work with AJE as a parent ambassador and work on my own with a newly founded group that's been established, We the Motherhood. I'm also a parent member representing Ward 5 on Thrive by 5. And I would like to think of something fun about me, but the only thing I can think of right now is that I really enjoy making gin, which is a very, which is the most exciting thing I think I have going on right now, is making gin and doing other fun food, Saturday food test kitchen demos.
You won't have to have a gin making session or
It's a
homemade
good
gin.
time. It's a good
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, right. We need the liquor, right? Not endorsing liquor, right? SBOE and ombudsman. But Destiny Sharp next.
Hey everybody, my name is Destiny Sharp. I'm the Economic Justice Organizer with Spaces in Action, and I'm also a native Washingtonian. I got sent this invitation to come to this storytelling training, and it's right on time because I'm starting to do some storytelling and uplift a lot of people's stories. So I just wanted to tune in. So hi everybody, I hope y'all doing well today.
Hi. And I love Higa Mama. Her mama is a superstar for those who don't know.
Thank
Destiny.
you.
I went to high school with Destiny's mom.
I know it's such a small, DC is so small, right? Like
Yes.
a rite of passage with Destiny's mom and the Khan tradition, and we'll talk about that. So next on the screen is Roni. I hope I said that right. Roni Young.
Veronica is short, Ronnie.
Ronnie. Hi.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm here. Was invited by Fari, and I help with parent Aiden White and Naila White, which are 10 and 9. So I'm just here to listen and get any information to help the kids. And what's fun about me, is dance. And the kids laugh at me, big time.
You said, what's fun about you? Is the kid smacking you?
No, I can't dance. I'm a little uncoordinated, so they really laugh at me.
Oh, gotcha. Gotcha. They're about to snatch your black card out, back. So next on the screen is Angelique. Marshall. Sorry.
Hello, everyone. Let me see if I can put my camera on. My name is Angelique Marshall, and I'm an entrepreneur in DC, and I am here with my parents are here with me. And they're all, we're preparing for school, Zoom, homework, virtual learning. So I'm supporting the parents by helping them get on Zoom to learn to understand the packages from the teachers. But I'm an advocate for infant and toddlers and also the special need community. The fun thing I like to do is travel and spend time with my family. But I'm definitely, it's hard for a lot of parents to get on the Zoom and these platforms because there's so many different ones for high school and elementary. So I have seen the challenge and invited everybody over to listen to the call And so that's why they're not signed in, because they're here with their children. So we're going to listen to the call while the kids are outside playing, and I'm going to see if they'll be able to participate the entire time. And when they have to leave, to try to log back in on their cell phones. But thank you for having me.
Sure, would they like to introduce themselves via your phone or just say their name?
Of course. Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jeanette, Samantha's mother, and she's going into pre-K 3 at Thompson Elementary.
Go ahead,
Diamond.
Hi, I'm Diamond, and I'm Artist's mom, and he's already at, what is it called? Murray McLeod Bethune. Pre-K, is what they call it. Pre-K, no, kindergarten, I'm sorry. What are you doing?
And those are the two. And look, other parents are still calling in, guys. I'll try to send them the information.
Great, thank you. I see a phone number, and doesn't have a name. So 202, if you, 704-4269.
Hello, Isaiah Johnson. I am also supporting Fareed with the, child development and everything. We have lively discussions, me and her, about how to improve the next generation of our children. And I enjoy coming on the discussions and her including me in this. So I want to thank y'all. And something interesting about me would be I'm really good at Call of Duty on PlayStation. So, I mean, if any of your kids wants to try it, they can, come at me.
Okay. Keep that in mind.
I thought you would, hey, Isaiah.
Yeah.
I thought you was going to say something interesting about me is that I'm white, but I have a black mom. Her name is Fareed.
that would be a little more interesting. I'm sure the group though.
Okay. And well, thank you for being here. Call of Duty, my kids are not yet there, but I do have a nephew that loves Call of Duty, so I will turn them on to you. And so I have last, Nisha Brown.
That's Naisha Brown.
Oh, hi.
Naisha. Okay, sorry about that.
Hi, everyone. I'm just here on Fari's behalf, just listening in on everything, just checking everything out.
Naisha.
Yes. Can you hear me?
What school do your kids? Yeah, what school do your kids go to, and what ward are you in, and possibly something fun about yourself? Can you say?
Ward 7. He's at IDEA, public charter school, and I'm just happy to be here. This is my first time, so I'm just basically checking everything out.
Tell us something fun about you.
I mean, I enjoy other people's company. I enjoy having a good time and being in other people's company. I mean, I don't know.
Thank you for being here, all the same. So,
Thank you.
well, actually, Mariola, we're going to get to you in a second, but you want to introduce yourself ahead and then turn it over?
Thank you, Shama. Hi, Lindsay. Good to see you and good to meet everybody. I am Shama's friend, and we also work together supporting the DC Community of Practice on School Behavioral Health. And I spent 19 years working in special ed field, and recently, a year ago, I joined the Center for Health and Healthcare in Schools at GW. And through this pandemic, to survive, we created a little wellness group for whoever wants to join us. So we basically meet twice a week with Choma and Lindsay and a couple other friends that join us. And we practice mindfulness and wellness and support each other. So that's how I got here today.
Thank you for being here, and I'm excited to get into the wellness exercise in just a moment. So turn it over to you, Serena. Just say same thing and about the Lemonade Project.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for having me, Chioma. I'm Serena Hayes. I'm your ombudsman for public education. I live in Ward 5. I have 2 kids. One attends Inspired Teaching School, and the other one is enrolled at the Friends Community School, which is actually in Maryland. Fun fact, I don't know if this is really fun, but like I have gray hair. I don't know if you can see it, and it's like a family birthmark, so it's hereditary. Yeah, so I was born with my gray hair. As was my mother, actually. Okay, so the Lemonade Project. This idea, actually, I did not coin the term. I give full credit to the Parent Advocacy Action Team for coining the series Lemonade Stories, right? That's the idea of turning your lemons into lemonade. And this idea came about through my own struggles with distance learning last spring with both of my children. But the idea was, or is, that sometimes as parents, we often can forget as we're waiting on school systems, government structures to provide all of the answers. We forget the resources and tools that we already have. And for me, as I was sort of waiting for schools to be more responsive, to give more direction and more guidance, we were struggling at home, and I ended up coming up with some strategies and ideas that really helped, particularly my youngest child, to engage more in his learning and have a more positive experience. I made decisions for myself and for my family on what would work for us, sort of outside of what the school was saying. Really, the silence that was coming from the school in terms of the direction and like what was sort of expected of us as parents and what was expected of them as educators. And this idea, it really just stems from how we can use the tools and resources that we have to make better, really. Maybe not to make perfect, and maybe not to fix like everything, right? But it's the small wins that I think throughout this entire 6-month period of pandemic, I think everyone has had something positive, something that seemed impossible, but it ended up working out in a better way than perhaps it would have otherwise. So the idea here is for people and for parents to share their stories, share their journey from I didn't know what to do to like, this is what I implemented and it worked for me. And maybe that idea is that we started with this very like rigorous schedule, and I realized that it was overwhelming for my family and it didn't work for us. So we scratched the schedule, and now this is what we do. And this is working in a better way for us than what this other thing did or had. And I think when I think about myself and my family and our own journey, like I don't see myself as some special being. I don't have training as a teacher, right? Like, and I feel like if I can come up with something, right? Like if I can do something and feel good about that, then like I think other people are doing it too. So it's this idea of to share with amongst each other, like the strengths, to share the resources and the tools that we were able to come up with. Even if that tool was, I didn't know what to do, and I called my child's teacher and we had a conversation, and that teacher helped me lay out a plan for my student that is now working, right? Like it really is in concept and in practice is to take the thing that was hard and create the narrative and share the story on how you turn that into a success, no matter how small it was. Is to recognize that as parents, we have power as individual parent, as people, we have power, we have resources, and it's important for us to acknowledge and to share it. And yes, of course, to advocate, and yes, of course, to expect things from schools, and to ask things of schools, and to recognize that we still also have power within ourselves. So this is like what the ask was and the partnership is really this promoting parents as experts in, not necessarily as experts, like, because we are. So it's just an open invitation. That's how it came about. I hope that, you know, people will be inspired by Chioma, inspired by each other, one another, and really find your story, right? And share that, because other people need to hear it. They need to know. They need to know, you know, not just how you do it, not just how you did it, but to be encouraged to find their path for themselves and what will work for them. I think that's it.
Great, thank you so much. And we'll get into, you know, I would open it up for questions, but I think it's just best we go through the training, and then we can always follow up. And, you know, Serena, if you stick around, if not, that's fine. We'll always have, if there are any specific questions about submitting your Lemonade stories, or Serena, can you just speak to submission process and as we move into the actual training?
Sure. So that the two different ways that you can submit, you can do a video submission if you feel comfortable. And the ask is for 3 to 5 minute video, sort of summarizing sort of what was the challenge and what were the tools and resources that you used to develop a solution, and share that out with family. Chioma has a Google form that you can complete, fill out the Google form and upload your video through the Google form. The other option, if you're not the type of person that wants to be on camera, but you still want to share your story, is that you can write a tip or a hack, or, you know, you can narrate your story in writing, and we can take clips of it depending on the length and put that on social media as well.
Okay, thank you. I am copying the Google form.
Well, thank you.
And putting it in the chat. So, and we'll email it out afterwards, so folks have it if you did not catch it in the chat. And thank you so much, Serena. So now we're going to turn over to Mariola, who's going to take us through a wellness exercise before we get into the training.
I'm just going to say goodbye real quick because I have to jump on another call, but enjoy your meeting and have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chioma. Thank you, Serena. I really enjoy what you shared with us, and sharing resources is so important. And if you are interested, maybe in the future, there are a lot of resources that Community of Practice collected around wellness, and we would like to share it with you. And as we are transitioning to this little mindfulness practice that I prepared for you today, if you could maybe take a second and write in a chat your self-care strategy that is very effective for you, that help you through this pandemic and is still with you. If you could share in the chat so we can come back to that a little later. Yeah, so cooking and walks, wonderful. And meditation, working out, and music therapy, reading for destiny, meditation and fishing, running for Lindsay. Yeah, these are all great ideas. Yeah. So I see that meditation is a winner today. So I hope that you'll enjoy this little mindfulness meditation that I prepared for you around breathing. So if you can make yourself comfortable wherever you are, and you can turn off your camera if you prefer, you can sit down or lay down. This will be 5-10 minutes practice so we can really sink into the surface we're resting on and relax and just take a break from our day to day as we're preparing for this storytelling workshop. Stories are so important in our lives because they connect us to our hearts and they tell the life experience story. So awareness of the breath is available to us in any moment. Just simply by bringing awareness to our breath, we bridge our mind and our body and release stress. Our body and mind are in sync and we are present. So just bring attention to your breath and notice where your breath is entering your body. And let your shoulders drop and your hands rest on your thighs. You may close your eyes or keep them open with the downward gaze, whichever feels most comfortable to you. And try to feel the weight and gravity of your body. And notice the sensations where your body is making contact with the surface. Notice your feet making contact with the floor. Let your body sink into the surface below you. There is nowhere to go, nothing to do. Everything is okay. You have set aside this time to simply feel your body and listen. Come to the stillness now for deep rest. Visualize your body resting. Allow the weight of your body to become heavy. Spend a few seconds exploring these sensations. Allow your head to be supported. Allow your face to relax. Letting go of any facial expressions to soften. Bring your attention to the movement of your breath wherever you feel it. There's no need to change the way you are breathing or do anything special with the breath. Just let it be as it is. Feel the natural flow of breath in and out. Tune in to the physical sensation of breathing. Not thinking about the breath, but being with it. Notice where you feel your breath in your body. It might be in your belly. It may be in your chest or throat or in your nostril. Can you notice the feeling of cool air going in and warmer air going out? Do you feel it moving in the upper chest, in the mid-torso, or in the belly? See if you can follow your breath down into the belly, noticing how the walls of your belly expand like balloon on the inhale and relax back again on the exhale. It may help to put your hand on your belly so that you can feel the rise and fall of the breath. See if you can feel the sensations of breath, one breath at a time. When one breath ends, the next begins. Be kind to your wandering mind. Now, as you do this, you might notice that your mind may start to wander. You might start thinking about other things. If this happens, it's not a problem. It's very natural. Just notice that your mind has wandered. You can say thinking or wandering in your head softly. And then gently redirect your attention right back to the breathing. Stay here for a few minutes and notice your breath in silence. If you get lost in your thoughts, return to your breath. Your breath is your anchor. It connects you to this present moment. Feel the life within your inhale. Sense life flowing throughout your entire body. With each breath in, begin to direct kindness toward yourself. You might even want to put your hand on your heart and feel the kindness of your heart expanding within you and also outside to all the people that join us today. So breathe in the kindness and breathe out the kindness to empower your stories. Bring attention back to your breath and notice if your breathing changed through these few minutes, focusing on your world within. Notice if your breath got slower, if it's easier to breathe in and out. Notice the places in your body that feel at ease, comfortable, and maybe some places that still feel tensed. Welcome both experiences. And take a few deep breaths through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. And come back to this space of storytelling. And slowly move your fingers and toes. Welcome any movement that your body is asking for. You might want to stretch. And fully arriving here, open your eyes. And welcome back.
Thank you so much, Mariola, for that. It's always great to kind of get grounded and settled. So hope you guys are also feeling better centered. Wellness is a practice, and we do meet in our container of love Tuesday mornings. And if anyone's interested in joining in the Tuesday morning meditations, please, it's at 7:45 in the morning. Just put your name in the chat and we can add you to that. Otherwise, we're just gonna move right into the training for today, which is the storytelling workshop. Let me get my slides up here. Okay, so this is a process in which I'm just kind of experimenting with and playing with as a process to collect stories. So just a few words about Bright Beam and our partnership, Chi Born Free's partnership with Bright Beam. A key part of what the Parent Advocacy Action Team is tasked to do as fellows is to provide and promote digital content that speaks to race, inequity, and the achievement gap for students with disabilities. Storytelling is a key way to promote in terms of digital organizing and even just community-based organizing. But you know, we, as you guys have seen, we have, or you will discover as we're growing in our action steps collectively, working towards finding ways in which families, DC families, particularly Black and Brown families with children with disabilities, have different ways of telling their stories and being heard and taking action. So mobilizing is not off the table. Engaging with state actors is also, as we're doing right now in partnership with the State Board of Education and the Education Ombudsman, is also something that we do. And we want to hear from families. We will also be rolling out an IEP bank or vaults pretty soon, in which we want to have the opportunity to invite the legal community to join us on sessions to talk about just the anatomy of the IEP, what we move forward, you know, how the different services that our kids are getting, what we can do to support each other in making sure that we're all getting the best supports and services we can for our kids, and just to understand, you know, the IEP process. So we'll be reaching out to partners like Advocates for Justice and Education and Terrence Pralick and Million to support us in that. But at the bottom of this, no matter who the experts are, the beauty of organizing and the beauty of storytelling as part of that process is in owning our own stories or trusting people to support us in telling our own stories. And that's what has led to developing this. And I'll say more about the Lemonade Project, just touching more details of what Serena had said. So why, sorry, my kids messed up my laptop, so things are gonna be a little janky here. in terms of my function so I can get it fixed. So why decolonized, right? It is my understanding, fundamental belief and understanding that even within the United States, as United States did not officially participate in the colonization process in terms of what happened in the third world, colonization, however, is very central to just the fabric of our country. And what is colonization? It is a process in which you take people's indigenous, authentic understandings of the world and you wash it over with, or you reintroduce or replace it with new concepts and ideas. And in the world that we live in, white supremacy is central to that. White supremacy, whether you're Black or white or any race in between, we are all functioning from a white supremacist lens. And it is important to, at opportunity, find ways to understand things authentically, particularly for Black people in our decolonial, indigenous African mindset, but that it's also true for indigenous Native Americans, in any indigenous society, indigenous Europeans even, to really think outside of the fabric of what white supremacy and capitalism typically offer for us to think in terms of scarcity, in terms of competition, false competition. And so why this is important to the storytelling process is because how we go about doing things matters, right? Method matters. So as a researcher, I know that. And as an organizer, it's also true there. So this is a quote that I love, which is from a scholar, a Native American scholar that promotes decolonization as a process of learning and unlearning white supremacy. And she states that the intellectual project of decolonizing has to set out ways to proceed through a colonizing world. It needs a radical compassion that reaches out to seek collaboration and is open to possibilities that can only be imagined as things fall into place. Decolonized methods provoke revolutionary thinking about the roles that knowledge production, knowledge hierarchies, knowledge institutions play in decolonization and social transformation. And that is the business that we're in here today. Our stories are no less important than OSSE putting out its data every year, right? That informs the Uniform for People formula. Our stories are no less significant than any academic paper or, position paper or even opinion piece that speaks to the conditions of families in DC. And we know that everyone's busy talking about families in DC without necessarily always including the voices of families in DC. So part of our organizing and part of what we're doing here is to create the spaces and platforms in which our own voices, outside of whatever people may think about families of kids with disabilities or, low-income families or Ward 8 families, Ward 7 east of the river families, Black families, brown families, struggling families, everyone pulling out their hairs during distance learning. There's a lot of objectification of our experience, right? Without necessarily really making us the subject and putting us at the center. And we know that because we see how the policies are set and who constantly has a seat at the table. So what we're doing here is revolutionary. So deconstruction, again, talking about colonizing, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, which is what, is a great book. If you guys haven't read it, you should pick it up. That really speaks to the importance of why we need to unlearn and have how we unlearn colonialism, right? So kind of like right now, I'm giving you guys a workshop and a lecture style. I'm going to do my best to practice what I preach by including your voices even in this. So a fundamental idea that's in the pedagogy of the oppressed is that no one is an empty vessel in which you're pouring new information into, which is what colonialism does, right? If you enroll in a class, I mean, they teach our kids this when you're in school and you're learning 1, 2, 3 and ABCs, it's on the assumption that you are an empty vessel. But I promise you, even a 2-year-old has acquired knowledge from birth to 2 based on the languages around them, the culture that informs who they are. And so even our youngest, smallest kids are not empty vessels, right up to us. So part of learning to tell our stories is in recognizing what's in our vessels and how we bake it with new information based on whatever the story it is we are attempting to convey and to tell, right? And decolonization means ridding ourselves of colonizing ideologies. Part of why oftentimes people are constantly talking around families in terms of education is because of colonialism. It's because we are not the subject of our lives and experiences. The hopes and dreams we pour into our kids that we birthed or that we have loved very deeply, intimately, is not what motivates the system's functions. And again, we know this because of the outcomes of what we see and the constant needing to remind the system that we're even here. Even as we're at home with our kids, we are still being disappeared, right? As our significance in the education process is more critical than ever. So storytelling, the power of the narrative. As I've said before, just to reiterate, right? Stories are part of a natural occurrence. They shape our stories. They're authentically ours. No one can take it away from you. And the power is in your hand in terms of how you convey it. As Serena has given us options of videoing our stories or writing our stories, documenting our stories, there are other mediums, right? People may want to paint their stories or cook, and as a method of conveying a story. We're not limited to mode in terms of storytelling. When you go out and you take action, as we're seeing Black Lives Matter right now, there's a lot of stories, a lot of narratives, a lot of things that are happening. And I feel like the movement can benefit from also finding these mediums of training the directly impacted communities on how to be empowered in self-conveying. And we see that through the dancing. Every time there's a demonstration and you see the dancing, these are all part of a decolonial way of conveying why we take the perspective of our lives needing to matter. So we're doing this authentically anyways. But to really shape and harness it is the power. It puts us in the political arena to shape our own destinies and the future of our children. Okay, so I just want to play just maybe a few minutes here of these guys who are white South Africans, but I thought their beginning is how they convey this is interesting. You guys can hear it. I'm gonna actually mute myself here.
Chioma, we can't hear it.
You can hear it. Okay, can you? I'm gonna lower the volume. The problem working with 2 devices. Can you guys hear it now? Hear me on this other device?
I can hear you.
20 years. And the site of that research you're not seeing double. There are 2 of us up here. And the reason for that is because we have been engaged in research over the last 20 years. And the site of that research has not been in here, or in here, or in there, or in there, but in here, the space between us, which you could call our friendship.
So the main idea we want to present here today is that there is a reciprocal relationship between listening and telling. One cannot exist without the other. Think about listening as a bowl and telling as the liquid being poured into that bowl. Just as the bowl gives the liquid its shape, so does our listening give telling its shape. The way that you're listening to me right now is giving my speaking its shape. And the way all of you are listening to me right now is giving my speaking a particular shape. If you stopped listening, sooner or later, I would stop speaking.
There are things that arise in your listening that get in the way. Perhaps the seat's uncomfortable. Perhaps you're too full from lunch. Perhaps there are some thoughts about my speaking. Maybe you don't like what I'm saying. Maybe you do like what I'm saying. Judgments, opinions. So I'd like you to imagine that there is this space called clear listening, which is a wide open listening. Imagine you could sit in front of anyone in the world, even someone really close to you, and allow them to say absolutely anything to you, and you let go of the obstacles that arise in response to their listening.
This open listening is a very, very difficult thing to do. The method that we have created to teach people how to listen and tell stories has shown us that the minute we're put into a situation where we need to listen, these obstacles begin to arise. And at this moment in time, I feel that I need to presence Madiba Nelson Mandela, who died yesterday, the man who led our country, South Africa, to freedom, and invite you to think about how he was able to listen so openly to a country after 27 years of incarceration. So that's an inspirational thought about how one might be able to listen openly and without obstacles.
So our story begins in 1974 in Johannesburg, South Africa. That's me there.
Hello? Hello?
Gianna's just trying to get her sound together.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Okay, so yes, I'm sorry, getting my sound together. I think I did something on my screen here that's gonna keep showing up. Hopefully not throughout. I'm not sure how I put that. But anyways, hopefully you guys can still see it through the little swipe. I'm not sure how that happened. Oh, the problem with 2 devices. Okay, and I hope the echo will stop because now. Okay, I think the echo should have stopped. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very clear now.
Okay, great. So here are the steps. So maybe we can have a quick conversation about that before moving into the actual process in which that I want to promote for us in general and for the PAT Fellows, these processes in which, you know, this is going to be our foundational way of engaging with families as we, you know, help to convey their stories. But for everyone else, you know, the listening process we're talking about storytelling, right? So we're telling our stories, but there's a very important part of that listening plays even to ourselves, right? Like the colonialism is so deep that it is baked in even our internal dialogue, right? How we talk to ourselves, the way the opinions we have about ourselves, how we receive information. I love giving people compliments because I find that, you know, especially moms, right? Especially Black moms, we don't get that enough. And you can see just the impact, maybe sometimes the resistance that comes when something affirming about you is conveyed, right? But it's also practice to do not just to other people, but to ourselves. I think that it was important to show, at least why I liked those guys in their TED Talk, is that they're framing it within the political context. Storytelling is a creative process, but as they noted with Nelson Mandela, part of what set Nelson Mandela apart from many other leaders, right down to our local leaders, is that he spent 27 years in prison just by himself, right? Like literally listening to himself all day in the madness of solitary confinement. But what that did in shaping his ability to master himself, master his story, and then be able to lead, that transformation is the fabric and the core of why storytelling is critical and important. So I just want to hear from you guys. I want to listen. You know, what you're thinking so far about, you know, decolonialism and just the listening process and just your experiences with story in your lives.
Well, this is Fari, and I'll start. I think a huge part of decolonizing is changing the framework of special needs, mental health, whatever your disability or disorder is, changing the framework so that it is absolutely normalized, and that will help to decolonize, I think. There shouldn't be as much seclusion. There should be more inclusion for our children. We need to do away with secluded de-escalation rooms for our children. We need some other alternatives to integrate them into society so that it's easier for us to deprogram all the colonization and reprogram cultural equity into our children. And that deprogramming comes from everything from natural hair, not having people buy in so much into a Eurocentric expression of hair, fashion, or whatever, even if it means having some international days where African garb and galas, and we're celebrated not only during Kwanzaa once a year, not only during Black History Month in February, but all the time, celebrating our history and our heritage so that it is normalized. And so people don't buy into the high-end designers. You know, allow some of that collective work and responsibility to begin generational wealth right within our own communities. Whether that means bringing more entrepreneurship instruction to special needs children. They can have their own, they can start business, they can be entrepreneurs. I've never seen entrepreneurship promoted within our special needs community. So I'm just, you know, kind of off the top ranting, but these are the things that resonate with my spirit when I think about decolonization.
Great, thank you for sharing. Thank you. Other thoughts so far?
Chioma, can I go?
Yeah.
Okay. Also, I have to go at 5:30, so I just want to make sure I say this. I love what you said about just kind of normalizing storytelling just within families and making sure that it's as important just as the data. I think sometimes just in DC, in this country, we put so much emphasis on numbers and data and money that we're forgetting about the people that it affects. And if we think about the numbers, well, the people outnumber everybody. Families outnumber everybody. So if they outnumber everybody, then why aren't we centering families? And why aren't we centering their voice? And why aren't we centering their stories? And how come we are not centering their stories in the middle of the data? And so I just, just want to be an encouragement to everyone here. Just, I know it's scary sometimes to share your story, but it's really necessary because someone definitely needs to hear it. And more importantly, folks in DC need to hear it. Because right now, this BS that they got going on is BS. Because I just find it funny how reporters and news people and different agencies, all of a sudden, everybody wants to give family stories. Why does a pandemic have to happen for you to realize how imperative families are? Like, that's not okay. And we've been, like, how long have we been saying this? For centuries? For years? And why do we have to look a certain way for us to be valued?
Well, I don't know if I'm off keel here, but I believe SAMHSA has begun to set some federal mandates where family voice is at the table, where those grants are not being funded. If there's not a component of family voice, and I know an expert is on the line with us, Ms. Gail Avent, can speak more to that end.
Yes, and thank you guys, because I've been at the table for a long time, and it's not that family has not been trying to get their voices out there. What I find is the system. The system is Child and Family Service, DC Public Schools, Health and Human Services. Those systems traditionally, I guess from the New Deal, when, in my opinion, the New Deal, when Roosevelt tried to take care of folks, they did it a little too good, because now systems think that they can think for families, they can manage our kids better than we can, because just think about it for 1 second. Every policy that's in the city, and I believe the person who just handed the torch to me is correct. SAMHSA mandated that. And when I came in to doing system of care work in the District of Columbia in 2005, they was mandating it with Department of Behavioral Health when it came to mental health services for our children. And that's how I got into understanding how to advocate for families, how to do the storytelling, how to hold agencies accountable because they are the system, and to how to create a voice that it can be heard. I'm the mom of 4 kids, and 2 of them had mental, well, all of them really, everybody. The statistic in America say 1 in 5 got a mental health. So just think about it. So we all have, in my opinion, have a mental health challenge. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing, because they give us opportunity to work on ourselves and also to be supportive and work on our children. So it's not bad. So please don't take it that way. But the storytelling and getting family voice at the table here in the District of Columbia is like pushing a piece of cheese up a mountain with a toothpick, because people don't give families credit for parents knowing what they want for their children. Yes, some people need a little help, but don't have the help look like you overtaking their family and their responsibility. because every parent in this city, in this world, and I have met plenty parents, want their children to be just like everybody else. They don't know how to get there. They don't know they know what it looked like, but they don't know how to get there. So when I help families, I make a point to protect them, to be the advocate for them, to stand in between systems and them, and have the system understand that the parents want to know how to access resources that's going to help them, not what you tell them they need, but they know what they need. And if they need help with understanding how to implement that, then we should be there to support them and not shame and blame. Shaming and blaming don't get anything. Shaming and blaming have people to recoil and hide their information and hide their pain and hide their need. If we can get to a point where we can have a safe spaces where people can be transparent and they know how to tell a story, because you don't tell all your story. You tell enough of your story to get the attention and the help you need, because sometimes when you think you want to share all your story, it can kind of backfire. So, and I appreciate this conversation, and I'm hoping that, this can be the beginning of many conversation, because parents and families is an underutilized commodity for all agencies. Because here's why I say that. If you have a agency or organization that doing good work, parents gonna be the first one to tell about the good work, and they also gonna be the first one to tell about the bad work. So I think it's behooves, I always encourage agencies, organizations in DC to partner with parents so that parent can help them promote their service, and also be the ear, the listening ear, which sometimes is hard for agencies to do, to listen to us and see what we have to say. We may not have the correct diction, but we know we have the heart. We know we had that commitment. So thank you again for allowing me to chime in, and I hope to be on these meetings in the future, and let's roll up our sleeves and do some good work.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. You said dropped a lot of jewels in that, and one thing that I think is going to help us segue into this next session here is the point in which stories do present vulnerabilities, that unloading all of your story at one time or parts of your story in the right arena, is part of why it's important to listen, right? Like, because our stories are so powerful, they can turn things on and they can turn things off in terms of, political outcome. And part of why listening to like right now, the State Board of Education and the Ombudsman, they want us to tell our lemonade stories, right? Very specific angle of the story that they want to hear from us. Now, knowing my whole story, that's my business, right? And being able to know that, as in listening to myself, telling it back to myself, figuring out how to share it with different people in different ways for different reasons, it's an activation process. So while listening is a whole skill set. We can have a whole workshop just on listening, and maybe we should. But listening is such an important skill, especially when it comes to advancing a place and a platform where family voices are most elevated, right? Because knowing your whole story and knowing what parts and how we convey them is where the power is. So again, the process in which I'm unfolding here is in recognition that, like I said, with our PAT fellows, I want us to be able to tell other people's stories, which is a dance. But it starts with the self. So everything listed here looks like it's about two parties, but I'm going to do my best to help you guys see through this process that even as will be preparing your Lemonade stories, for those who opt to tell their stories for the purposes of the Ombudsman's project, these steps matter even with ourselves, right? So mindfulness preparation, we just went through that. Well, I've listed it out here. I'm just gonna keep moving through the slides. I wanna talk about it one at a time, right? The importance of grounding and the importance of mindfulness as a step in the storytelling process is that, just as Mama Gail just pointed out, that we all have so much happening in terms of our mental health, right? We all have a lot of trauma, a lot of pain, a lot of we're triggered frequently, no matter our station or socioeconomic or even race. This is just part of the human experience and the human mind. And in a moment of saying, I want to sit down and I want to learn parts of myself, I want to listen to myself, and I want to tell it to other people, it's important to be conscious of what's happening in the body. I struggle with anxiety and depression, so I know intimately what happens to me when my mind is racing, right? When my mind is racing, I am my least productive, right? I may even be my most self-destructive because the mind is moving faster than the rest of me is able to keep up with. So centering and grounding is really important. Now, like I said, and as Mama Gail had said, in the storytelling process, being centered and grounding can also be the difference between you getting, the outcomes that you want from sharing your story versus the latter, right? Not what you want. So centering and mindfulness is not just about the practice of just our healing, it's also part of our political strategy to keep a log of what's happening to us emotionally, right? Also trains us how to engage with other people. Mastering ourselves and mastering our narratives and mastering the feelings that we bring into it, and that we have control over that, is to keep that power, is the power of a storyteller and the power of an advocate, which is what, another word for storyteller, and the power of an organizer, one who helps create opportunities for stories to be told. And that it's okay. It's okay to not do it right now. So in terms of engaging with another person, if for those who may want to share in our process here of gathering stories with other families, like, it's okay to reschedule if the person you want to engage with is not ready. And it's okay to reschedule if you are not ready. And again, the more you know of yourself and the more you know of your emotional map, the more you know what readiness looks and feels like, right? And like I said, I like to take mindful walks and meditation, but I love how Mariola started. There's so many different ways that can look for different people, and what matches you and your personality to be able to help you center and get grounded. I like taking my shoes off and putting them in the sand or in the ground and just letting that seep in. And we'll do that, right before I'm about to write, right before I'm about to talk, or whatever it is my medium is in telling the story. So it's important, I think, first step. Intentional consent, right? Framing this in the self perspective. There's so many experiences within us and around us that I think it's important to even gain consent for myself. For example, I'm a rape survivor. So it's not always opportune, and I have to know when I'm ready to tell that part of me and how that part of me shapes other parts of my experience. And that is a permission that I do have to constantly renegotiate with my girl child that went through it, and whatever purpose it may serve in the function of telling that part of me. For gaining consent in terms of just the objective organizing. You know, part of what the SBO is doing right now is about gaining consent. They have a form that says, hey, can you are saying that you are self-saying that I want to upload my lemonade story. And so that, you know, in and of itself is a consent process. But there are many ways, decolonial ways to gain consent, right? Like just verbally asking people, by listening. You know, some people may not always want to or be in a position to just say, I'm not ready, I don't want to tell you this part of me. Part of listening allows for you to be able to read a situation and to be able to know when to press in one direction and when to release and let go and go in another direction. And it's important to kind of know when you're on the same page with yourself, or if you're with another party, to get a written consent, just in terms of legal protections, and also just in the sense of knowing that everyone is on the same page, literally on the same page. Like, I consent to tell you my story. I consent to tell you this part of my story. I started telling you what I didn't want to tell you, and I'm asking you to not include that. I want to tell this part of my lemonade story, and I just thought about it. I'm not ready for that, and I'm not ready. I haven't asked the people in my family, because you may also want to get consent from your loved ones. You know, I have a brother with schizophrenia. I can't always tell parts of his stories without his permission, even as it's my experience with him. So consent is a very important part of the process, and this is not any one prescription of what consent looks like, but just an intentional, be intentional about consent with yourself, with your story, and with other people if you're in the process of sharing other people's stories. To create a warm environment. You know, I'm a water sign, whatever that may mean for other people, but environment is everything, right? Where having the right lighting, having the right sound, creating the right atmosphere. I know that because my kids are so active, that it's not always opportune for me to, you know, get into telling my story just during a time like this. I may need to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning to tell my story when they're sleeping, or wait late at night. That's part of setting your environment, picking the right time and the right place, and creating that intentional environment, that place, whether it's a room, whether it's outdoors, whether it's your favorite pen and paper, or, you know, right position, comfortable seating, or, I mean, again, and storytelling in a decolonial sense is, again, not just the oral tradition is, you know, as strong and as sharp. So even if I'm recording it to myself or just saying it for the benefit of others, setting that environment is really important. So in terms of creating that environment for other people, I hope that there's also an emotional level to the environment. We're on Zoom, so it's not a situation right now during this workshop where I could have like had you guys in a room and made sure there was comfortable seating and that we're really all ready for this. But I'm hoping that in the start of this, introducing ourselves to each other and doing the wellness exercise, like these are all part of environment setting, saying that this is the culture in which is a safe place for you to tell your story. We can do that for ourselves, and we can do that for others. I keep myself in a closed off closet here that I've created to do my work and have my Zoom meetings, you know, just because, again, I engage with people a lot on a one-to-one basis, and, you know, making sure that my kids, who everyone may, you know, love, we all have kids, we're all parents here, right? But it can get disruptive, right? Like if I'm trying to communicate with somebody, especially if they're telling me something really sensitive, and I haven't taken the time to create an environment where my kids will not interrupt or disrupt. So for the Pat Fellows specifically, like keep that in mind as we schedule time to know our community members one-on-one and engage with them in the storytelling. But you know, for others that are telling their own stories, environment setting, again, is as important as I've just stated. So tell a brief, prepared story of yourself to connect, right? I think this is really specific for when you're engaging with another person, right? Like when you're telling a story, especially something of depth and of consequence, or you're asking somebody to tell you their story of depth and consequence, it's really important to make that connection, that personal connection with another person. Now, if I'm to spin it and flip it about what it means for me to connect with myself or be inspired by others, it would be as important to know that I'm not the first survivor, right? And to also allow myself to be inspired by other people who have told their survivor stories. And that's, I mean, that's just part of humanity. So knowing that my vulnerability allows other people to be vulnerable, and that is, you know, and once it's out there in the world, then that story is out there to have that impact on other people, which is the whole point, right? As an advocate, as a family advocate, our stories are the most intimate part of our experiences, right? Like, this is why it's so hard for the system to kind of engage us, because when we're telling the story, we're telling our life, right? We're telling what's happening in our homes. We're telling the dynamic and the cultural elements and the foundations of who we are and what we are and how we come to be. And to ask somebody to do that without first being vulnerable yourself, you know, one, you may not get the best story, or you may not, you know, get the right story. And so it's really important to frame ourselves within this process, and knowing that everyone that chooses to submit your lemonade story, no matter what, you are speaking to an audience. You're speaking to an audience of other families that they don't know you, but once they hear your story, they're part of you and are now giving themselves permission to tell their own story. So the whole purpose of the Lemonade Project is to create this spiral, you know, the snowball effect, as we use snowball effect as an actual research method, where when one person does it, it snowballs into another, into another, into another. So literally everybody here that chooses to participate in the Lemonade Project, you are already part of a process of this connection that I'm trying to convey is important of the decolonial process. And I think Serena is really great at that. You know, she starts off, you know, with her, the reason why this is important to her is because she's the mom, and because she's having a hard time, and because she knows that it's difficult, you know, what's happening right now. And she wants to create a platform for other families to inspire each other, right? That's connection. Now, transparency, and I think Ron Miguel also spoke to this, is important. That's the whole point of telling a story, right? And being transparent, but also being transparent of the method. Now, I want to be transparent in saying that part of why I want every single person in this workshop to tell their lemonade story is because it's important to really seal that relationship with the State Board of Education and the Ombudsman's office, because we're going to come back and ask favors, right? Like, we want to be able to deliver our stories, not just for the benefit of inspiring other families who would benefit from knowing, you know, a problem that you have solved, or a method that works for you in your home, or some aspect of what's happening during this distance learning moment. It's also in relationship building with power structures that can help forward a family-centered agenda. That's me being completely transparent as to what my interest is in doing this. I want you guys to record your stories and send them tell your stories in writing. I've told my story. I'll play a short clip of the video that I sent to them, and you know, I'm putting you guys on notice. I think it's important at every step, again, for the PAT fellows, that whenever we're engaging people, that it's very important that we are transparent. Nothing that we're going to be doing, and you know, and I guess there are different things that people organize. Not all organizing agendas need to be put on Front Street. But when you're asking somebody, particularly to tell a vulnerable story or tell a part of them that they wouldn't normally tell, full transparency is critical, and it is central to the decolonization process. If you think about what happened when the Europeans came into Africa and came into the Americas, they were not transparent. They did not say, hey, I'm going to give you this blanket here with, you know, smallpox and kill your whole village, right? Like, that just kind of happened on the slide. And they didn't say, hey, I'm going to come into this, I'm going to dock this ship in Africa, and you know, I want to spend some time with you guys, but hey, wait a minute, I'm going to take half your family and transport them across the ocean and put them to work for hundreds of years. I mean, transparency is extremely important in just being able to connect, gain trust, and for people to know why you're doing what you're doing. When you take my story, that's data. Your story is data. So and data is as good as DNA. So we know that within research that there's nothing more valuable than data in, you know, the capitalist white supremacist space. Like, that's why we're constantly social media, every day we're posting. That's data. And we can talk about, that's a whole nother subject in terms of data and how that is being used. But the power is also in being clear to people why we're doing what we're doing in whatever format, in this case, the Lemonade Project. So offering grounding and trauma-informed questioning. So, you know, Fari is trained as a certified peer specialist. Viola Joy, thank you for joining, and the recording will be available to all participants post this meeting. So grounding is an important part of trauma, right? Like, as I said, anxiety and depression, in my case, it manifests in different ways for different people. Grounding beyond environment. So there's the environment setting, and then there's the grounding questions, the grounding assumptions, right? There are grounding assumptions. Like, if I'm speaking to somebody that that is not in my family, is not in my home, we may both be Black, we may both be mothers, we may both be Washingtonians, whatever the point of connections, you know, those assumptions, there's an assumption there, right? That we are actually making the connection that I hope we're making. And by making it clear through repetition. So part of listening also says that I am taking in information and I'm making a connection with that information in order to, you know, tell a new story or to forward a story. But grounding there's a grounding that happens in that is really important in terms of not objectifying your own experience or not objectifying your subject's experience, right? Like, just because we may both be Black mothers, it is important for me to not assume that we have the exact same experience. Or just because we both live in Washington, D.C., you know, we have 100 different kinds of realities here in Washington, D.C. Part of a trauma-informed way of questioning or, you know, dispelling myths that may be coming out of grounding assumptions is repetition. So, and this is, again, only particularly to when you're getting somebody else's story, right? But in the exercise of self, like, if I write out my story before I record it, and I realize that even in my language, I'm making a lot of assumptions about what it means to be a mother of a kid with a disability. that one, I'm a parent of children with autism. That may not necessarily, that's not a blanket for a parent of a kid with Down syndrome, or parent of a kid with a learning disability, or parent of a kid with bipolar. That, you know, I can speak to disabilities in general, but if I'm telling my story, I'm telling my story. And I need to also be clear that I'm speaking about my kids with autism, and that even that can be a lot. You can unpack that too. In terms of the dual dance with other people, it's important to recognize, like, I'm listening to you tell your story because I want your story, and I want to be able to share your story. But part of a trauma-informed way is to repeat back. Like you said to me, just to make sure that I understand what you said. You said that you think that it's problematic, that whatever Mama Gail just said, that sometimes if you tell your whole story, you can get into trouble. Did I get that right? Did I hear you correctly? Right? And just give the power back to them, even in the narrative, right? Like they're gonna be going and unpacking and rolling out and, you know, maybe even starting to get uncentered because the story is getting intense. But to bring it back in terms of a trauma moment, to repeat back what one hears is a grounding method to dispel the myth of assuming. And again, if we're telling our own stories, taking a step back to say, hey, what part of this am I making too many assumptions? Because I am speaking to an audience. I'm not just speaking just to me. These are trauma-informed ways of self-checking, and as well as reaffirming people who may be in a trauma moment while they're sharing their story, and not making assumptions, even if we may have similar shared lived experiences. And to give space for restorative sharing, right? It's really important that even in a conversation of talking to oneself on a camera and telling a 2-minute story, that there's still reciprocity happening in that moment, right? And there's real healing that can come from that moment. I think that, just sometimes when in sharing with people around this Lemonade project, sometimes I think it may not be fully appreciated why it's important to tell your story, right? That, I mean, if you're an advocate, you know that you're in the business of trying to shape policy, trying to shape experiences. People get it on that level, right? In this very political reality that we live in Washington, D.C. But there's a whole nother level, a spiritual level even, that when there's a poem by, I forget, Mariana Williamson, they ran for president just now. And, it sums up in saying that when you let your light shine, you give other people permission to do the same. Like the poem ends like that. Our deepest fear, I think is what it's called. I forget. If anyone knows the actual poem, please put it in the chat. But the whole concept of that is that when I tell my story, because there's power in it just in and of itself, there's that, but a key element of that is who I'm communicating with, right? Like that's why storytelling is such a powerful organizing tool, is that it really truly can heal. It really truly can empower, it can ignite, it can agitate, it can move people to action, it can cool people down, it can inspire and motivate people. And yes, a 2-minute story about something you figured out and not assuming, again, in terms of grounding assumptions that somebody else has figured it out, is powerful, right? And it's feminine. And I want to say feminine because it's not like a big sweeping solution. It is subtle, it is low, it is soft, but it hits so strong and so hard. And that appreciation that our individual, what's going on in our homes that no one knows about, and we take a minute to tell that, whatever it is we figured out, our small victories, is healing. In addition to it shaping how our leaders, city leaders, also see who we are and what we're about and how we're really living. And that's for this project, but that's true for any project that one would engage in a storytelling. So to read back your notes, right? Like, I like to take notes. And again, I want to be decolonial about this, that literacy is a big deal. And there are many families who are not literate, that have low literacy. By taking notes, that could be mental notes, that could be recording on your phone, or it could be writing with a pen and a pad, all depending on, again, what is most comfortable and what matters. But it's important to not just spit out information and hope somebody catches it. The intentionality of storytelling is that you are deliberately taking pieces of a bigger story and even have a daily practice of doing your storytelling, so that when you take notes, you're able to extract the parts of it that can then move your agenda forward, right? Or move the lever forward in whatever campaign, in this case, the Lemonade Project. I mean, it offers also maybe an opportunity when you look at your notes, like I said, okay, I'm a survivor, but deep in, people are getting kicked out. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. And I hope you keep coming back in. But again, this is being recorded, so this will be available even if you get kicked out and come back. So yeah, it offers opportunity, so the detail setting, right? So when you're reading back your notes and you're reading back or you're listening back to your notes, it also gives you an opportunity to figure out what your final draft is gonna be, right? And for the Pat Fellows, it's important that when you're telling other people's stories, that you're also figuring out how to, in fact, take notes and read back. But the next step is actually the most important step, which is to, make space for questioning. I'm gonna go back to that. So before we get to the making space for questioning, part of taking notes also allows us to know, what we've already stated and how we've stated it. And it invites the storyteller into the process that says that, hey, I'm here, I've shown up, and these are the actual notations that I've taken in order to receive, to actually land where I want to go with the storytelling process. Sorry, I got a little thrown off, trying to find my center back here. So making space for interview questions. So again, this is again very specific to if you're engaging with another party, but as you're taking notes, you've been transparent, you're trauma informed in how you engage in the storytelling process, you're cutting through your grounding assumptions, and you're intentional about what the story it is you're trying to tell. If you're engaging with another person, it's important to give them space to ask you questions, right? To ask you questions about your process, to ask you questions about how you're going to tell their story, to ask you questions about, did you capture this specific part? Did you not? I mean, that's part of the empty vessel process in terms of decolonialism, is that yes, you do have a power as a storyteller, even if it's your own story that you're telling, but to make room for people to question and say, hey, did this part of your story work? Or did this part of you telling my story work? That creates safety, that creates safe space. I'm not gonna harbor on it because we're in the Lemonade Project, this is not as critical. It's really important if and when we are telling in other storytelling projects, which would be engaging other people. And it's important to set a report back session. And I hope that the State Board of Education does this, and it's gonna be my recommendation to them as well, that before they start to air out or broadcast the catalog of stories that they're collecting, that they figure out a process and a way to report back to the people in the project before they release it to the public. This is, I think, the most important thing in terms of a decolonial way of going about this. You know, oftentimes, and, you know, for those of us who have been in this game here in DC for a long time, you know, when people say, hey, come and testify, I want your testimony, and I want you to write your testimony, and I want you to film this, and or a reporter, you know, in terms of the journalists who are storytellers, will say, hey, I want to do a story on you, and, you know, they'll interview you, take a whole hour of your time, and then maybe take 2 lines, and the only way that you even know what those 2 lines are is when it's already gone to publish. That's a very small, it may seem like small, but it's a huge violation, and it's counterintuitive to my African instincts, which are that it's really important to be even communal in this process. That if I'm taking a story from somebody else, it is only right that before I release it to the world, they are the first reader. They are my peer review process. For those of us who may be in the academic space and know the importance of the peer review says, hey, you're gonna read it with your peers, and then it becomes valid as a, you know, academic product to then be published, you know? This is a peer review way of ensuring that if I'm telling a story, or if stories are being captured, that the people who first get to receive it are those people in which I have taken from, right? And for Pat Fellows, you know, that is our practice, please. Like any story that we tell, that we take the time to share it with the person before we share it with the world. And that could be in a group setting, that could be in a one-on-one, that could be a quick email, that could be, you know, just a quick check-in, or, you know, there are many ways this can look, but that report back is the most respectful thing and is the most family-centered thing, especially because, again, people say a lot of things and they may change their mind. No, I don't want you to include that. Or I want you to include this new information, you know, kind of similar with the questioning part. So we're not going to get into the writing session because in the interest of time. But what I want to say in terms of the Lemonade Project, I'm actually going to use this opportunity to show just a short clip of what I recorded for the SBOE for those who will make their submissions. Put it on YouTube. And I'm not going to play the whole thing because I actually went on for a lot longer than the 2 minutes. I think I went on for 5 minutes just because I'm long-winded as a person. Do not do like me, please. Oh gosh, here we go. So here's the problem with this, my dual screen thing. Hi, my name is Chioma Oru. I am the mother of 2 sons, Atulegu Oru and Jadafo Oru, both on the autism spectrum. Ati is 10 years old and Jedi is 7 years old. And my Lemonade story is a very small one. Small victories is what I love to celebrate. At the start of the lockdown in March, you know, my kids, probably similar to other kids, really had a tough time getting into the new routines. for kids with autism, transitions can be very hard. And when their regular routine of getting up at 6 in the morning, having their breakfast, having their shower, and then getting on the school bus was disrupted, we had to find new ways of creating routines that encourage positive behavior and learning. So these aren't tools and things that I could have done by myself. So I also want to recognize the community of therapists, particularly ABA therapists at their school, and also in-home ABA therapists, which we do telehealth sessions, and also sometimes, if we're able to, have in-person sessions. So collaboratively as a team, we would try to think through what the transition into the spring semester look like, and then transition into the summertime look like, and how I could help in creating routines that allow for my sons to know when things are happening next, so to limit problem behaviors, and also to encourage positive behaviors like going to bed on time, like eating all their meals, by completing their tasks. So this is a tool that is an ABA tool that I think is great for every kid. This is one for my oldest son, Atu is what they put it. His name's Atulegu, A-T-U. And this is what is called a visual schedule. Now for my son, as you could see, there's the to-do list, the things that I would like him to do. So with the help of his ABA coach, we talk through what are the things, what are the visual icons that will help him get through the day. And what are the things we do that we can then create a reward system. So I know my son loves his iPad, as most kids do, especially kids on the spectrum. So he is rewards driven. We know that because we've done a functional behavioral assessment, and we've also been paying attention to what motivates behavior for him or motivates him to do things. And so the iPad as an icon is always an incentive. I know that we generally take tasks in very small increments. So I know that once he wakes up in the morning, because he has his shower time at bedtime, the first thing to do is to brush his teeth. And then the next thing I want him to do is to have his breakfast, as you can see with the visuals here. So to brush his teeth, have his breakfast, do some reading, and then take a break. And if we can get to, every time we complete a task, he will work with me to move it over to things that are finished. If he's brushed his teeth, we put it on the finished tab. If we eat his breakfast, on a finished tab. And then if he reads, on the finished tab. And when it's time for break, we celebrate. But we also want to have it finished, but we put it on a finished tab, and then we say, hey, Auntie, you now get your iPad. And then, I'm just gonna stop right there. That. So, can you guys hear me?
Now we can. We couldn't before.
Okay. Sorry, this is so confusing. I can't wait to get my computer fully fixed. It's been a lot harder. That is pretty much it for the training. So I just want to open up in these last few minutes, just what you guys how you guys are feeling, what you're thinking, if you have any questions, and if you feel like you're going to submit your Lemonade story. So just open it up to comments, open thoughts. Anyone like really excited about submitting their Lemonade story right now? Well, not right now, but as part of this process. Great, thanks, Yolanda. Any questions or thoughts about sharing your story or any part of this training? No, I totally get it.
Hey, Chioma, it's Lindsay. So I guess I'm still wondering what, and maybe I missed this, I've been kind of in and out, but what OSSE is going to be doing with it.
So it's not OSSE, it's the Office of the State Board of Education and the Ombudsman, Education Ombudsman.
Okay.
Yeah, but still, I believe what she's going to be doing with it is just sharing it with other families and putting it on their website so that families can just be inspired. But that's a good question to re-engage Serena to help just be very clear with us, like is there, to parent and say if there are multiple things they want to do with it. I would, to that, I would say just strategically, like in framing our stories, to also recognize that even if it is something that OSSE uses at whatever point, that, that we want to share a story because we're sharing it with the government no matter what, that conveys whatever we want to convey to the government. So I don't know fully what she fully intends to do with it. My understanding is that it will be on their website to help inspire other families.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Other thoughts? Questions?
My husband overheard your video, Chioma, and so now I have to play it again and take several notes. Your Lemonade resonated with him, so now we know that the stories are effective.
Nice. Thanks, Dad.
How do we add something to the chart? I wanted to share. My family and I, we just created a points chart. My two have social and emotional learning disorders. So we created a points chart, but it lists behaviors as opposed to actual, things to do. These are, the points chart lists the days of the week, and then it has maybe 10 behaviors at the top. There's a box to be checked for each one. I wanted to put a picture in to give parents some ideas about it. And then at the bottom of the chart is a good stuff menu. And the good stuff all has an equivalent point value. So if the good stuff is, something kind of small, they take their points from the points chart and use it to buy stuff off the good stuff menu. So you want to give them incentives to continue to work so that hopefully some of these social and emotional behaviors are eradicated eventually. That's the plan. But like a scooter ride is 3 points, and a run to the ice cream truck maybe 5 points. But for bigger things like a toy is 20 points. And then you can also add some weekly goals and a review. So you sit down and review. And all of these things I plan on using. And then there's some other tools that I have with a chore chart for the entire family. Because oftentimes, even though our children have disabilities, if the entire family is not engaged and involved, surrounded, not just to single out a special needs children, any child, that you're working on with social and emotional behaviors and learning disorders needs the support of the family. So as I speak with my families, I'll be encouraging them to not only specifically hone in on, of course, we want to feature the trials and tribulations within the special ed system, but we also want to be inclusive and include that whole family in the healing process as well.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. So, thanks, Lindsay, for joining. Again, it'll be recording. Hope you submit your Lemonade story. But yeah, so Fari, I totally agree. So I just want to also be clear, like, what these methods, these are just short stories, right? But in terms of actual like coaching parents and supporting parents through these kinds of processes, that's my vision. That's part of what my company, Chi Born Free, really wants to, create, a parent coaching process. And, through the course of the year with the PAT Fellows, hoping to bring you guys into that and create opportunities where we are coming up with different methods and principles. I'm a certified early interventionist, so there are things within, my training that will come into the coaching, but the goal is also to bring on our ABA therapists, our cognitive behavioral therapists, other people that can help inform a coaching process, because, in truth, a story is important, but, there are levels to it, right? Like, this is an advocacy tool. We know that they're real things that families are trying to solve. And I just see that in another bucket in terms of a coaching system. And, you're a natural coach and you have these skills. So I look forward to developing those with you. And if, as things unfold and as opportunities unfold, working on a workbook that will support the coaching program. So if anyone's interested in that, just put your email in the chat, or just stay tuned. You'll be sharing information on that. But we're trying to solve real problems. We're trying to heal ourselves and our kids, and I recognize that. And there's only so much a 2-minute video is going to do, right? But it is, like I said, it's a huge step. It's a huge step, and it does have impact. And I hope that you tell part of that story, Fari, so that so I hope that becomes part of your Lemonade submission, if you choose to make it, when you choose to make it, because it is powerful. I love the token system. The token board is powerful, which is what you're talking about. You're talking about the tokens and how they earn points. Like, point systems, some things work for some kids, and some things don't work for other kids. But, for the families that resonates with, they need to hear your story. So thank you. And I hope you record it or document it and share it so that it can be part of the Lemonade Project. All right. Any other thoughts?
I just want to say that you have created a very necessary, powerful, impactful training that, I'm just, my wheels are turning just thinking about, because I will admit that I have been to probably 3 other storytelling workshops, and none of them compare. And I'm not just saying that because I love you. I'm saying it because I love you. None of them compare to this. Dr. Chioma Oru, you have knocked it out of the effing park.
Thank you. And I hope to only get better. I know my technology problems giving me anxiety here, but I really appreciate, and I will, send a formal evaluation for people to just give, feedback. I really appreciate that. There are glitches in it. This is new. I want us to be able to use it for different functions, and maybe also then I think it would be important to maybe have slides that are just for when you're telling your story, and then slides of when you're telling other people's stories. But, the whole point, and I appreciate that. I just want to receive that because, like I said, that's part of my decolonization, is just to be able to receive. So thank you. Thank you. Any other thoughts before we get offline?
It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Right. We're gonna need that gin making session, Michelle, but I think she's off now. But yeah, we're gonna need that gin making session at some point. So everybody have a good evening. So for the Pat Fellows, know that Tony, the coach, is gonna join us Friday. I tasked myself to send you guys something before now, and I will do it before Friday. So look forward to Friday. So we're on our session 2 with our business coach, and I will see you guys there. For everyone else, or I guess now it's only Mama Gail that's not in the Pat that's still on the call. But thank you all for being here, and I will see Pat Fellows Friday. Everyone else, I hope you submit your lemonade stories, and we'll follow up in email.
Okay.
All right.
Great. Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Bye.